Live from our 7 Tasmania studios, your nightly news with Kim Miller begins now.
Good evening. First tonight, no new COVID cases have been recorded despite a teenager with a Delta strain breaking home quarantine during his infectious period. Authorities are warning we're not out of the woods yet, and the state won't be sure it's free of COVID for another 2 weeks.
This Newnham supermarket, the eye of a COVID storm.
Intense. Yes, it's been full on.
Manager Sandra Boland helping authorities trace the movements of a COVID-positive 15-year-old boy who visited the store on Saturday afternoon. 3 staff members aged between 16 and 20 were on site at the time. In quarantine now, but still being paid by their boss.
It's like if you were injured at work that you'd go home and you'd be on payment. It's nothing that they've done wrong.
Trade impacted too. Yesterday's takings down 20%.
There's still a lot of people that are obviously nervous and anxious about, whether we should be open or should still be here.
I've reached out to the owners, or indeed the manager of the IGA. No Business Tasmania has as well, to discuss what support is available to them.
The boy now confirmed to have the Delta strain of the virus.
The likelihood of a case amongst close contacts, or at least one of the close contacts, I think is quite high.
So far, 9 of 17 close contacts have tested negative, while another 35 casual contacts have been identified. There was a rush for testing yesterday, with the number of swabs taken jumping nearly 50% from the day before. Extra wastewater analysis will also take place, aiding the hunt for any cases.
It really requires us to wait 12 to 14 days, which is probably to the middle of the month, till we know that the close contacts are clear and the casual contacts too.
Please, if you have any symptoms, again, even if they are only just mild, I encourage you and urge you to get tested.
Also urging the unvaccinated to take up the thousands of appointments available over the next few weeks. But questions over their effectiveness in reducing transmission have some questioning the national plan to reopen.
What the federal government is wanting states like Western Australia and Tasmania to do is, in my view, insane.
Backing the state government's caution, but saying even a vaccination rate of 90% may not be enough to stop an outbreak in its tracks.
And it's a matter of how we control it. Now, what these new data show is that we can't rely on the vaccines to do all of that for us.
We have the oldest and sickest population in the country at the best of times, and therefore there is, I think, a sound argument that Tasmania needs to be more careful.
But for now, the state carefully watching for potential cases. Josh Duggan, 7 Tasmania News.
In developing news this evening, the Labor Party's National Executive has voted to remove State President Ben McGregor, effective immediately. Our political reporter Meg Sides joins us now. Meg, what has played out today?
Well, good evening, Kim. Ben McGregor has described the decision as very disappointing and distressing. The Tasmanian Labor Party president was dumped as a candidate during the state election earlier this year after he was accused of sending an offensive message to a colleague 6 years ago. The state parliamentary Labor Party recently passed a vote of no confidence in Ben McGregor, and the state secretary asked him to resign. Now that's been backed in by the National Executive, removing him from the position effective immediately. In a statement, Mr McGregor says he is particularly distressed that the National Executive acted unilaterally to remove him. It comes as a call was made to postpone the ALP state conference until after the next federal election. In an email to party members, State Secretary Stuart Benson says, "This is a critically important election and our number one priority must be working to elect a federal Labor government," highlighting winning a 3rd Senate seat from Senator Erica Betts as a key priority. But Kim, the last-minute cancellation has come as a surprise to many.
Well, it's been revealed just how badly lockdowns and border closures have ravaged the state's tourism industry. Data from Tourism Tasmania shows a number of visitors coming to the Apple Isle dropped by 44% in the year ending June, down to 575,000. It appears, though, visitors were staying longer and spending more, with the total number of nights spent and the expenditure by visitors dropping by only 25% and 27% respectively. The trial of a man accused of attempting to murder his partner has begun in the Hobart Supreme Court. The Crown alleges the young woman was deliberately set on fire in April 2017, leaving her with burns to more than half her body.
She was just 20 years old when she was allegedly set alight. The man accused was her partner of around 18 months. The court heard their relationship had started to sour very early on. In her opening address, Crown Prosecutor Linda Mason described their union as a toxic one, and that the accused, who was 15 years her senior, had a tendency to threaten to kill her. The jury was told how the victim had tried to end the relationship on the day of the incident, saying she didn't love him anymore, but she agreed to drive him to his parents' house, and that's where things unravelled. The pair went into a shed which was at the back of the property, where it's alleged he shut and locked the door. An argument erupted, and as she tried to leave, he deliberately covered her with petrol. The Crown alleges that shortly after pouring the accelerant, he stood a short distance away from her, held out his hand and flicked the lighter towards her, where she was immediately engulfed in flames. She was placed in an induced coma and transferred to Melbourne's Alfred Hospital for specialist treatment as a result of her severe injuries. Defence lawyer Greg Richardson says the abuse and threats to kill were not just from the accused, but the victim too, labelling her a disturbed woman who was making suicidal threats that went wrong. Mr. Richardson also told the jury that the defendant was the one who put the flames out and yelled for help. The trial continues tomorrow. Letitia Wallace, 7 Tasmanian News.
A coroner says a man who died in a crash in Newtown last year was not permitted to drive a car. Coroner Simon Cooper handed down his findings into the death of Stuart James Quirk after his van hit the back of a taxi before smashing into a sandstone wall on Risdon Road in October. He died at the scene. The report says he suffered epilepsy and has had his licence suspended as a result. The coroner offered his condolences to Mr Quirk's family but made no recommendations. Tasmania could face a timber shortage of more than 5,000 house frames by 2035. The building and construction sector calling on the government to develop an action plan to tackle the problem before it's too late.
A shortage felt around Australia, some builds delayed by up to a month as suppliers scramble to find enough timber.
It's going to get worse before it gets better. I think most people realise that we are in the middle of a building boom. Our state government are promising a lot of new social and affordable housing. There's less timber coming into the state.
But the problem could get even worse over the next decade. A new report forecasting Australia will face a deficit of 250,000 house frames in 15 years' time, a shortfall of more than 5,000 in Tasmania, the equivalent of the Kingston local government area.
This report released last week should be a wake-up call for decision makers to avoid a potential construction industry crisis over the next decade.
Calling for an urgent action plan to tackle the problem.
Industry needs to work with state and the federal government to come up with a plan so we can actually look at the demand now, but also the supply into the future.
The law of supply and demand does apply, and we absolutely support our sustainable forest industry to able to meet the needs of our building construction sector.
But those looking to build their dream home are being encouraged not to give up on the great Australian dream just yet.
It will happen. There might be some delays, there's no denying that, but it will happen, and our suppliers are doing the best they possibly can.
Meg Sides, 7 Tasmania News.
The Northern Midlands Irrigation scheme looks set to go ahead after its business case was approved by the state government. The size of the program has been doubled to 25,500 megalitres due to significant demand from irrigators for surety of water supply.
It's just a demonstration of the confidence that the farming community has in the model that we're developing here in Tasmania.
Diversity into dairy, fruit, stone fruit, horticulture, berries, they're all coming into the area. It allows us to put more confidence in our investments.
Tasmanian Irrigation is hoping to have the scheme operating by 2025. If you saw emergency crews tending to a plane, Hobart's Airport's runway this morning, there's no need to be alarmed. It was just a simulation. The airport holds drills every 2 years with fire, ambulance and police to test its response protocols.
The sorts of things you might trial are an aircraft that has a problem either on takeoff or landing. It may have an engine failure in a fairly catastrophic way.
The exercise did not affect passengers on scheduled flights. Students on school holidays can see the ways our planet is changing in the latest exhibition at the Launceston Planetarium. The show, Our Living Climate, features Earth's evolution from many millions of years ago to the current age. Astronomer Chris Arklis says the presentation hones in on the roots of climate change and its effect on the planet.
It's the 50th anniversary. The warning in this movie, of course, is that we've got to watch our behaviour and to ensure that we don't cause rapid climate change, which renders the planet basically uninhabitable for us.
The 30-minute presentations are now running at QV Mag.
Tasmanian cyclist Hamish McKenzie is primed to crack next year's World Road Championships after signing with a new team in Queensland. He'll race in some of the country's highest profile events in a bid to lock his name in the national squad. Today's loop through Launceston and Evandale is a well-worn path for Hamish McKenzie, but he's set for warmer pastures when he heads north.
Bit of pressure off for next year without having to look for a team.
That team?
The ARA Pro Racing Sunshine Coast Cycling Team, the region's international sports team.
One which McKenzie will represent in the new Under-19s National Road Series and at high-profile races like the Tour Down Under. If he stands out, the Road World Championships in Wollongong is within reach.
That's the big goal and hopefully I can pull it off.
The Year 12 students' biggest feat so far is pursuit perfection at the Nationals.
And it's a gold medal to Tasmania.
The move to the Sunshine Coast isn't totally foreign. Another Tassie rider, Zach Gilmore, has spent the past 2 years on the team and says McKenzie is a good pickup.
Dog at a bone, so whenever he sees an opportunity, he really goes for it in a race, and it's fantastic to see that.
Although McKenzie names time trials as his strongest suit, he says jostling among the bloated bunch of elites between sprints will be something that he'll take getting used to.
More experienced riders that know how to push around and bump, so we'll learn the ropes and hopefully get better at it.
While his family will be watching every pedal from home.
When I was little, Dad did triathlon, so I kind of followed in his footsteps and did triathlon, and then really found the love for cycling, so did that, pursued that, and just still riding with Dad to this day, so I think my big inspiration.
Good evening, Launceston and Devonport our top today with 19 degrees. Hobart registered 16 and Burnie 17. Friendly Beaches 18, Bushy Park and St Helens 17 degrees. Low Head and Grove 16, Flinders Island 15 and King Island 14. Strawn a cooler day under cloud and 12. A few showers over the west as well. Mount Reid 21 millimetres today and Zeehan 13 millimetres as this cloud affected the west and parts of the north. A moist southwesterly airflow had cloud over the southeast of the country. A front has cloud over the Bight with a little more clipping Western Australia. Tomorrow a ridge of high pressure moves in ahead of a cold front still moving through the Bight ahead of another high. Winds west to southwesterly reaching 30 knots early over the north and south. Winds tending northwest to northeast in the afternoon. We have a strong wind warning, that's for all Tasmanian coastal waters apart from the upper east. Hobart, a top of 18 tomorrow with a late shower moving through. 17 for Geefton, late showers, same for Bothwell, 16 the top. Launceston 19 degrees, showers moving in. Devonport late showers 16, 18 for Cressy. Burnie a similar forecast with 16 the top, showers getting heavier later in the day. Strawn 16 and 15 for Curry on King Island. St Helens a sunny day but showers later, 18, 19 for Swansea, 18 the top for Orford. UV, as is the norm for this time of year, sitting in the moderate range. On Thursday, showers statewide but contracting to the west and far south in the evening. Possible hail there and snow to 700 metres. A few showers on Friday but little over the east. And on Saturday, snow on the peaks again with showers more frequent over the north and west. Sunny and 19 in Perth tomorrow. Showers on the way for Adelaide. Conditions clearing in Melbourne to be fine by the end of the day and 22. Sunny in Sydney and Brisbane. Cloudy everywhere at the moment. Hobart 14 degrees, Launceston 16, Devonport currently 14 degrees. Just a little thing for you, Kim. I wasn't very happy with what you did while I was away, breaking into my wardrobe and shrinking all my clothes. There will be retribution.
Wasn't me. Thank you, Merv.